When I say the word risk, what comes to mind? Is risk to you just getting out of bed each day? Or maybe risk is about how risky you are with your financial investments. Or maybe risk is simply just the old board game we used to play. Today, risk is about rule number 9. Rule number 9 is when communicating risk, know the difference between acceptable risk, unavoidable risk, and compounding risk. This rule for me came about when I was in meetings at work and we had something came up, something unforeseen or perhaps even out of our control that impacted the plan. And we'd go around talking about how this added a risk to our plan. And often we'd say, well, yeah, that's an acceptable risk. But when I thought about it, in many of those cases, it wasn't necessarily an acceptable risk. It was an unavoidable risk. We're maybe bound by corporation-imposed schedules or something that we couldn't control. And therefore, if we had started the plan originally, this would not have been acceptable, but now it's unavoidable. I also think there's times where we want to take the easy way out. By calling something an acceptable risk, we don't have to deal with it. We just say, oh, that's acceptable. As opposed to trying to figure out, well, how do we mitigate this? So I'm good. Actually, I'm great at rationalizing risk and saying, yeah, I don't think that's really going to be happening to me, or I don't think that's really a concern for me. And so, if our plan is based on luck, it's not really a plan, it's really more of a YouTube fail waiting to happen. And so we want to be honest with ourselves when we're evaluating risk and working through that. A red flag for me is if I catch myself saying something like, yeah, I don't think that'll happen to me, or yeah, I know it happened to so-and-so, but I can't see it happening to me, right? That's one where I'm going to have to go back and reevaluate things because I know I'm trying to rationalize something away. By the looks of those clouds, I might be taking a risk count here today. So we talked about acceptable risk and unavoidable risk. The other thing I mentioned in the rule is compounding risk. That's the idea that sometimes we need to look at how multiple risks in conjunction or in aggregate can be an impact. And often in aggregation, the impact is far more severe than the individual risks themselves. Now, we're pretty good at this when we start out and build a plan initially, but we don't often take into consideration as new risks are injected into the plan, what's the impact of those happening together? A trivial example might be I'm going on a trip. And yeah, I should get new tires because the tread's not very good. And yeah, I notice that my headlights are dirty and I'm not getting as much vision from that. But in my trip, I'm going to be traveling during the day, so who cares? Well, as is sometimes the case in New York or Pennsylvania, there's road construction, so maybe I get delayed. And then maybe a storm comes in, which I can't control either. And now I'm caught in a rainstorm with bad tires and bad headlights. And another factor, a deer jumps out. I swerve to miss that and I crash. Right? So all those risks come together at the same time, thinking about whether that's going to happen or not. And so compounding risk, we cheat a little bit on schedules and not thinking about all those factors combined. Well, if you're wondering where I am today, I'm at SUNY Broome Nature Area. Some of us may still think about this as Broome Community College, but SUNY Broome, or State University of New York system, Broome is a college campus here in Broome County. And they have a wonderful little nature area here. It's maybe 125 acres, about 4 miles maybe of hiking trails, and it's very well curated. What I mean by that is you'll often see signs as you're out and about of, this is a sugar maple and this is an eastern hemlock. But over here, since it's also run by the STEM division of the college, they have a lot of signage that's very informational. This is where I first heard the term forensics applied to the woods. The idea of looking at something and trying to understand why is it growing the way it is? Why is the ground shaped the way it is? And I just find that really cool. And so there's quite a bit of that around here. that we'll take a look at as we go. It is a little bit hilly, and right now in spring it's a little bit of muddy. A little bit of muddy? It's a little muddy. But check it out if you get a chance. I mentioned that Rule 9 talks about when communicating risk. And so that's, again, part of this evaluation process, that how are we going to communicate the risks that we see? And that's where, again, it's clear or important to articulate whether it's an acceptable risk or an unavoidable risk. And the more people involved, the more important that communication is. You know, we don't want to cheat along that route. Now, risk is inevitable. You know, I kind of joked about it's a risk to get out of bed each day. And we don't want to play things super safe. We've talked about that in the past as well. But we need to know the risks that we're dealing with, and especially if it's going to impact other people, being able to communicate it to them. So life is about risk, whether we're playing a board game or planning for our future or any number of things. Just be honest about it. So I'm curious, how do you handle risk? Take an acceptable risk and leave a comment down below about how you handle risk, or how perhaps your view of risk has it changed over time. In any case, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope your risks are all acceptable, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
I know that it can be there someday. You've been waiting for. I know this life can be that one life you've been dreaming of. Today could be the someday. Today could be the one day. Today could be the someday you've been dreaming of.
Well, what risks do you think were involved in this getting where it is today? Risk. And we just want to be clear and honest. Woo! See, I took a risk trying to talk while coming down that hill.